Hello.
Hey there, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Representative Chapman, thank you for joining us.
Hey, you bet, Jeff. How are you?
Good. How's the weather up there?
Okay. Kind of cloudy.
Yeah.
Same as, I think I was down there a week ago, Monday. It was Chamber of Commerce kind of day.
hmm
But
I think Steve is going to be joining us. I invited the 19th district guys, but I kind of doubt that anybody, maybe Jim. Jim might show up, but I don't think the other two.
well, I always enjoyed when we did it in person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Hopefully
it
we'll
was,
be able to
I
get
mean,
back there again.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. It's not, I mean, obviously this is better than nothing, but I appreciate it. You guys always kind of rolled out the red carpet for us.
Yeah.
But better to be safe than not right now.
Yeah. Are you working from home or are you?
I'm kind of doing a hybrid. I've had some meetings in person again. Most people are pretty, everybody's kind of honest. If you're vaccinated, and so I met with the hospital, and I've met with down there. I met with a couple groups a week, 2 weeks ago. Steve and I were down there. We met with the PUD, and we met with the hospital, and we met with the port, and everybody. We just spread out around the conference rooms, so it wasn't too bad.
Mhm.
But and then up here, just meeting with folks as they want to. If folks want to meet in person, if not, we're still doing a lot of Zoom. I think our session will be kind of a hybrid, a little bit of both.
Mhm.
The one nice thing with Zoom is people can connect for our committee hearings and not have to travel to Olympia. And
Oh, absolutely.
we're actually able to get in a lot more public testimony the last year that way. So I think we'll have to kind of keep that as an option no matter what going forward, because especially from our friends on the other side of the mountains. I mean, it's a long trek to drive from Moses Lake to testify on a bill for 2 minutes in Olympia in the middle of January. It's not really, yeah. So how are things in and I'm sure you're no lack for demand for services, huh?
Yeah, it's challenging because, we're trying to do community guide and community engagement services because that's more of a one-on-one thing, but we're really eager to be able to get back to some of the more group activities we have, like the weekend club and food stirs and some of the other things that we did where we get together and just opportunity to visit and rub elbows. But, for now, I guess the one-on-one activities are going to have to be as good as it gets.
Yeah, missing that personal, just for folks to miss that personal touch.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Especially
Yeah, some of our people really kind of suffering from it. These are people who are, struggle from lack of social inclusion anyways. And then when the world gets shut down on them, it's pretty tough. Well, Mike, it's 2 minutes after 1. What is your feeling here? Would you like to get started or should we wait for Steve?
We can give it another minute or two. I don't know if you had a meeting before. Do you have like a little presentation?
Yeah, I do have a little slideshow, just something to get the conversation started, I guess.
I know we haven't solved some of the problems that you mentioned last time we got together, but
it's a long game.
Yeah. I see.
Have you been involved with any of the North Star conversations with Clallam Mosaic or any of those people?
The only thing I've been involved with Clallam Mosaic is maybe helping them with a capital budget request. They need a facility, but Priya is not contacted me about anything but that, so.
Oh, okay. Well, I know Stacy Dim has joined us here, and maybe she, at some point, maybe could jump in and let us know what's going on with the North Star stuff.
And it looks like she's got to leave, so maybe we'll just get started if Steve
Oh.
joins, so.
I thank you so much. If that's okay, I'm happy to introduce myself and say a little bit. And if I have to pop out for that 15 minutes, I couldn't say no. Just when. So I'm Stacy Dim. I'm the executive director of the ARC of Washington State. So we have 9 local ARC chapters, and the ARC of Grays Harbor is, of course, one of my favorites. And I'm really excited to just chat with you for a couple of minutes about some of the priorities that we might have this session, and some of the issues that we're really working hard on. I wanted to mention, as Jeff said, that the North Star conversation is something that's come up. Our Developmental Disabilities Council has spent the last 10 months or so with over 200 people in our community trying to identify the larger barriers to services in our states. As you might know, we're 41st in the nation, so we struggle to stay in the bottom 10 of funding services for people with developmental disabilities. Under Home and Community-Based Services, which is a federal waiver program, we have aging and senior services that actually come in at number 2. And it's the same federal program, it's just the way we administer them differently under DDA and ALTSA. So we're really excited that the Biden administration is going to put some, hopefully, if they pass this next package, some federal incentive for states like ours to really improve the services we offer for developmental disabilities under home and community-based waivers. And so the North Star, you'll see, has a number of conversations that touch on what we would like to add or change in not only home and community-based waivers, but sort of across all systems that people with developmental disabilities hit. You probably have heard from a lot of families after their child turns 18, they go from having pretty easy access in school systems to everything they need to get information about, to all of a sudden having to navigate housing, Social Security, DDA, work and employment. And it's really, really difficult. A lot of families call it falling off a cliff. And that is in part because our adult services are just so fragmented and scattered. So I'm hopeful that you'll look at a couple of things. One is a Senate Bill 5268 that passed the Senate last year. It'll come back into the House. And that is, it's got a lot of components in it, but the most important part of it is called caseload forecasting. And you may know caseload forecasting is a way for the state to predict the needs of vulnerable groups in our state. And developmental disabilities is one of the only social services that doesn't get caseload forecasted. And we know we have a really predictable group of folks who need services, and we know based on waivers what they need. We know that that's a big commitment by the state to go ahead and caseload forecast every service on home and community-based waivers. But it really is the way to lift us out of, like I said, the bottom 10 and get more comparable with aging services that are very similar to ours in the community. So that's probably the big ticket ask. That would be the first thing that we'd ask you to really consider, would be considered whole scale reform. And if the Biden package passes, our state will get a lot of additional federal money in doing that. And so we're pretty hopeful that maybe that'll happen in early January in time for this session, and you'll be able to kind of thread in that request. The other couple of issues, in fact, I'm leaving for this meeting at 1:15 to talk about the Transition Collaborative with a senator. That's a report that you all asked for, and it is to basically look at how to make school to work, a very unique program here in Washington State, be across every single county. So right now, that 21 years of educational investment we put in students kind of goes to waste once students leave, because there's not a strong transition from school into employment. And our state is an employment first state, and requires that individuals look at employment first. And without that strong connection, what we find is 1 year later with data from OSPI, most students with developmental disabilities are sitting on the couch, which is a waste for everyone. The big counties, as you can imagine, have figured out school to work. They use millage money and they use a combination of DVR and DDA funding. And that report recommends that we figure out how to do it statewide so that every single student with a developmental disability that leaves high school can benefit from this program that has 10 years worth of data and research. We're still grappling with, how to get you the costs. Our hope is that the counties are going to be able to sort through exactly how they get cost accounted for in big counties that these programs sit in. And that potentially we can also offer this program to students who may not quite be DDA eligible, but for all intents and purposes are developmentally disabled. And some of the programs do offer that up. And then the other would be on housing. So in our state, we have some inventory for housing for people with developmental disabilities. That most of that inventory is held by Commerce. Commerce also has the DD set aside in the Housing Trust Fund. And it's a few $1,000,000 that you all put in there every couple of years. We have a couple of problems with that. One is it's not enough. We need a tremendous amount of more housing for people with developmental disabilities. And we have a housing study that is in process that is due next December that we hope will lay a blueprint for your investment in housing. But in the meantime, we don't have enough developers who are interested in our housing who will build with the money that we have. And so we're advocating that Commerce receive $2 to $3 million in technical assistance money so they can get other developers to be thinking about how to serve the DD community. And so that may come your way in the form of a budget request. And then in addition, there's a number of changes to adult family home, a DD specialty contract that we're asking be put together, which is also a legislative report that got recommended to you highly, that we invest in that. That's an entitlement program. So it serves a lot of people who need housing, but we need a specialty contract because there's some unique features of that model that create some barriers for people with developmental disabilities to do that successfully. We don't have enough of it statewide. So I would say if you're going to ask me for my top 3 items, those would be it. And I appreciate that you're here to listen to that.
Thank you, Stacy. So good luck.
Yeah,
Good luck at your next meeting.
Thank you. I'll hop off and then I'll see if you guys are still here at 1:30, if that's okay.
Okay. Thanks, Stacy.
Okay.
So with everybody's permission, I'm going to share a couple of slides here I just put together to maybe kick off a little bit of conversation. So let me see, make sure that everybody can see my screen. So first thing, I guess I'd like to thank everybody for coming today, and I thank in particular our legislators. I noticed Representative Walsh has joined Representative Chapman. I am expecting Representative Theringer at some point. I know you're all very busy. Representative Walsh, I think, just had a ribbon cutting. So I understand it was out at the hospital. So it's my understanding that the legislative districts are going to be changing in the next year or two. The map that I most recently saw maybe showed Montesano joining the 24th district. Representative Chapman, do you know anything about that?
Yeah, that was in the map that the committee passed on to the court. I think the court's gonna have some things to look at, but I kind of doubt that the 24th is high on their priority. But I don't know, and I don't know, Jim. I heard we took in some Aberdeen too, but I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah, Aberdeen split about a quarter of the city. If the agreed upon map out of the commission holds, moves to the 24th. But the south side and half of the north side remain in the 19th.
And you're not affected, are you?
No, 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 I stay on the 19th as I've been.
The new boundary line that I saw is just about 2 blocks to the west of my current location. So we'll be staying in Representative Walsh's district for now.
I agree with Brett Chapman that if the court has issues with the compromise final map that was drawn by the commission, I don't think it's going to focus on our area. I think they've got other issues in other part of the states that they would likely look at first.
Okay. So this is a redo of a slide that I presented to you guys last year. It generally just shows the kind of differences between us and Grace Harbor County and the neighboring county to our east, Thurston County. Specifically, we have roughly 40% higher poverty rate. We have median home value that's about half, and our median income is about 35% less. So there are some significant differences between Grace Harbor County and Thurston County. One of the most interesting statistical differences that I found is that in Grace Harbor County, there's roughly 3,000 to 1 doctor to patient ratio, whereas it's less than 1,000 to 1 in Thurston County. What I find most interesting when you dig into this a little bit deeper is that Mason and Pacific County are the only ones on this chart that are in even worse shape than us. So there's a significant lack of healthcare providers. And I know Representative Walsh, you were at a hospital ribbon cutting just now this morning.
Sorry about that. Yeah, the ribbon cutting was at the East Campus facility of what we used to call the community hospital, Grace Harbor Community Hospital, and now we're calling Harbor Regional Health. And so they were recognizing not only the renaming of that particular East Campus facility, but they were also focusing on their rebranding of the hospital system more generally. And there are some services that are available at the East Campus facility that are relevant to what we're talking about here.
Hopefully that's going to help to remedy some of the disparities that we can see. So again, last year we talked about special education funding, and one of the bullet points later on in the thing is the fact that the 13.5% cap is a significant problem, but it's a significant problem here on the peninsula. All of the bars here in green, just the ones to the right, are in Grace Harbor and Pacific County. So it shows that a significant portion of the student body has special needs, and they don't get the additional funding that the districts and perhaps on the far left in the blue do. So to the extent Stacy made a point earlier about the school to work transition ability of the Puget Sound school districts to do that, it's part and parcel of this conversation, right? They have the money to do things like that because in part because of this 13.5% cap. So, and superintendent is on record as saying he really thinks it's inconsistent with federal law. So Stacy also made the point that DDA needs caseload forecasting. The interesting thing to me is that if we can caseload forecast prison populations, we should be able to caseload forecast people who need developmental disability services, given that those people are already identified at every school district as having an IEP. So it shouldn't be, logistically, it shouldn't be difficult to do this DDA forecasting, but it does have some budget implications that you guys are having to wrestle with. So yeah, 41st in the nation compared to second in the nation with DDA services versus early childhood education, long-term care, ALTA services. So it's a significant problem for our population. So housing is in short supply. Stacy also made some conversation about that. Of the 1,793 adult family homes in Washington State, only 54 of those exclusively serve individuals with developmental disabilities. And the AFH is the only housing model available to individuals on the basic waiver. So that creates a significant barrier for housing for people. And there's also a very good reason to financially to support AFHs because they're so much more cost effective. So these are some slides that were produced by the North Star folks. Again, it's reiterating some of the stuff that we've been talking about: housing, caseload forecasting. So one of the bullet point D here on this slide is interesting to me. Remove all IQ requirements from determining eligibility. So some of you know that my son has a developmental disability. He had an IEP all through school, but it doesn't, for a lot of kids with developmental disabilities, it doesn't show up as a deficit in an IQ score. And so he is now working, but he's doing it sort of without the help of DDA. It's just, you know, the other services that are available that are helping him get this employment. And if he had had access to DDA services, it would have been a significant benefit to him. And I hear this from parents in schools all the time, that they may be eligible for SSI, but they're not eligible for DDA because they use two separate sets of criteria for what constitutes a developmental disability. Again, caseload forecasting, plain English language documentation to help people access the services, removing IQ requirements, requiring follow-up with DDA eligibility inquiries. I know that the DDA staff are stretched very thin right now, and with working from home, it's been challenging, but there's a systemic challenge, a systemic problem with getting inquiries answered in a timely manner. And no wrong door. The ARC of Grace Harbor tries really hard with the help of Grace Harbor County to get services to people wherever they can, wherever they're eligible. But that's something that we could all work better on. So that's all I had. I noticed Representative Theringer joined us just now. Is there? I don't know. I won't put Steve on the spot. He's muted. But I know that he has done a lot of work with the capital budget recently, and one of the things that is important from our perspective is additional housing. Representative Theringer, do you have any updates from the capital budgets side of things?
Well, hello, everyone. Hello, Jeff. Folks, sorry, I was in transit, so I'm a little late. Yeah, no, this is a priority for us in the capital budget. You know, the last 2-3 biennium, we've been trying to develop more community housing for folks for a number of reasons. You know, we just think it's better for them to be in the community. It's better. They get better treatment. They're closer to their families. They're closer to their communities. I think one of the challenges is, you know, we make these investments, but it takes, you know, 3 years, 4 years before they can be actualized, right? Before the actual housing of the facility can be put together. I actually yesterday toured I think it's an 89 unit facility in Everett under the Compass Health folks up there. And they've got a real mix of folks there. About 15, 16 of those places are supposed to be for people coming out of Western. As you know, Western Hospital is a challenge, so we need to deal with that. And getting folks into the community there. Then it's a lot of people with behavioral health issues that are on the street, getting them off the street and putting them into that housing. It is about, I think they've got about 65 of those units filled, and they've got, you know, another 30. So I think maybe by the end of the year, first part of next year, they will have all those units built. But it's a coordinated effort for the North Sound, you know, behavioral health area there that includes Whatcom County, Snohomish County, and Island County. So that's the type of thing we're trying to invest in. We're also looking at, you know, that full spectrum Jeff, as you mentioned, adult family homes and other community settings. There's a group up here, actually, in the north end of the district, up here in Jefferson County, Olympic Good Neighbors. There's a bunch of parents got together and were able to purchase a house and start their own sort of adult family home there, looking at the challenges for the rates, for, you know, providing the supports and the care for folks, and also looking at the daily stipend, if you will, to make that a little more robust so that folks have some money that they can bring into that situation. But as a lot of you know, this is a very complex, challenging area, both the services and the housing. To be more specific on this supplemental year, you know, we do biennial budgets, particularly for the capital budget. That's when we pass the bond bill that supports the expenditures. And so we don't have, in the second year, which this year is coming up, we don't have a lot of dollars, bonding capacity to be able to make investments in capital things. The good news is I think the operating budget has some dollars. And so seeing investments in that area for these increased rates and increased support for folks that need them is, I think, one of the things you will see come out of the operating budget when we leave town in March.
Thank you. So have there been any discussions about state-operated living arrangements, SOLAs, SOLIs?
SOLAs are part of the mix. You know, there's just that full spectrum, right? There's in-home where you get community supportive living, you know, where you'll have someone come into your home, or you are in a home where there's community supportive living. SOLAs are a little larger group, and those are run by the state and staffed by state employees. And then there's adult family homes. So there's a full sort of spectrum of you know, of housing options. And I think they all meet a certain need for the client, right? If you want the client to be able to choose the right setting that works for them. And so I think having a full spectrum of choices is important. Obviously, there's some cost to that, but overall, I think, you know, having that variety and then being able to provide for the support services is kind of the way to go, it seems to me.
All right, thank you.
So, Jeff, can I speak to something?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to speak as a parent. I just, one of the concerns that I have and have became aware of is that the housing that first and foremost, everything that Jeff and Stacy said, I'm totally say yes, those are all things. But from a personal point, I want you to understand from a parent what we're facing as parents. So I'm 62, so I'm getting up there. And my daughter is 38. And I guess I was very naive because I felt like in my mind, I felt like I would have Lacey stay home with us as long as possible and save the state lots of money. I mean, thousands, millions of dollars. And that's a lot of the other parents. And then when we get up to our aging and we think, as we watch our parents and other parents get Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and cancer and pass away, it's like, okay, we need to be looking at, you know, our ability is getting limited. So we need to look at what's out there. And when I heard that if something happened to me, my daughter may not stay in Grace Harbor, that was very alarming to me because they say we don't have enough money in the budget. And it's kind of a slap in the face, I feel, as a parent who feels like we partnered with the state to do our part because she's 37, going to be 38. So for a lot of her adult life, we have provided her care and help the state not have to pay the full benefits of what it would cost to take care of her. And now if something happens, she could go anywhere from Spokane to Seattle And where her hometown is Grays Harbor. That's where people know her. That's where she's the safest. And that's where we wanted her to be able to stay. And so I get that we only have, you know, it takes years to get this done. So that's why I'm kind of like, okay, yep, we're right. And our years are going faster, you know. So we really need to pay attention to this and to do something aggressively. It is quite a shame that we are the 40th, down in the 40s, when it comes to taking care of our people with disabilities, when we do so good about the employment part of it. And I think our families have partnered well. And I think it's going to be a real crisis. And what I've seen, now I'll go and put my hat on for the county. What I've seen in the county with our people in the employment is we have parents who don't want their kids to be out of the Grays Harbor, or there's nowhere for them to go. So you have aging parents providing care for their loved ones who need care themselves. So they're not getting adequate care because the parents feel that there's nowhere for them to go. And that's a crisis. And it's something that we really have to look at and be and do something about. And I take my hat off to those families that are in that bought the adult family home, but I've also talked to them, and they are in the hole. They have to do fundraisers to be able to keep that home going. And they're the parents. It's time for them as the parents to be able to say, okay, I've done my part, and John or Jane Doe can go on, and I can leave this world knowing that my loved one is in good hands. And we can't say that right now. And like I said, we've done our part. It's time that the state steps up and does their part. And I don't know what it's going to take, but as a parent, I am pleading with you to do something aggressively and fast. And then not only do we have these parents a lot of times, like myself, who have a daughter with a disability, but we have what we call sandwich families, because I'm also taking care of my mom who has Alzheimer's who lives with us. So, I mean, the realities of what's going on with families is really fundamental for you guys to be looking at and to be helping them. I think all the things that are mentioned, the transition, helping our loved ones get into schools, go from school to work and develop a full life so that they have that when their parents are gone, is a great thing. The forecasting has to happen, because how can anybody prepare? All of us have to have budgets to be able to go on with our work and our lives. We have to have that to be able to know what's coming forward with our people with disabilities, because you have more and more people with disabilities coming up. So I just thank you for listening to me, and please hear my heart. I appreciate everything that you guys have done as far as our kiddos with disabilities, but I really want to be able to leave this world knowing that my daughter is in good hands.
Yeah, no, I mean, my hat's off to you, Dee Dee, for being caught in the middle at both ends here. And I think that's a huge, you know, I just can't imagine how that feels to see, you know, as you're getting older and just the concern about where your child's going to be, where your adult child's going to be, and trying to figure out a placement. And as you know, that's kind of what drove that activity up there with Olympic Good Neighbors. And I'm glad you're in touch with them. And I know they're certainly in touch with us as to how, you know, to help them out. And they, you know, they do want that data to know. I think they roughly think there's about 12,000 adults that are in this situation. But I think it's right that the, you know, ALTSA or DSHS has got to get better data to find out what's going on. And then, you know, but concurrently, we need to be looking at some of the funding so that it's not, so that they can operate. And that's, I think that stipend, that daily stipend might be a way to, if we bump that up a little bit, and I think that's in the cards, people are talking about that, that would then give a little more revenue into that adult family home to help them, make ends meet there. But I understand what you're saying, and I respect the challenge that you're facing.
Go ahead, Mary.
If I could just, sorry, I came in late. I was teaching a class. My name is Mary Roberts. I'm the Career Connected Coordinator at Alma High School. And I would just like to address this at a different level of what the frustrations we're facing. I teach juniors and seniors in marketing, but we've got several kids in this school that are at Alma High School interested in entering the healthcare profession. And as we approach Summit Pacific, we've kind of hit nothing but roadblocks. And yeah, I understand the confidentiality aspect, but we really have to get these kids to be able to job shadow, do internships or something to really try to feed their passion to be healthcare professionals. But in my 4 years here, we've come up empty-handed pretty much. So we reached out to Grace Harbor Community Hospital to put together a nursing assistant program for this spring, where students would be giving up their Saturdays for a couple months to become certified in that, because it's kind of an entry-level healthcare professional certification. And bless their heart, Grace Harbor Community Hospital just doesn't even have the staff to help teach that class on a Saturday. And we were going to get the kids college credit through Grace Harbor College, high school credit, and really they would be entry level, ready to enter into healthcare professions. And so that's where we're at Alma High School. We've got a great CTE director, Christy Kershaw, and she hired me actually 5 years ago. It's been a blessing to be in Alma, but this is one of the major roadblocks that I have encountered in my years here. And trying to get kids into the healthcare profession, that's really what we've been trying to do.
Yeah, this is Rep. Chapman. Is that are kids interested in?
Oh, I've got a list of kids right here that we're all signed up for that nursing assistant program.
So just the lack of a teacher.
Yeah, kind of. They're willing to give up their Saturdays. Christy's, willing to put it together, and her last contact with Grace Harbor Community Hospital, which has been much more helpful to work with than Summit Pacific. They just didn't have the clientele to help us out with that. And so I took my list and had to tell these students, well, it's not going to happen. So Christy's daughter is studying to be a physician, and over Christmas she's going to come and do a little workshop on December 15th about suturing and how to get into the medical profession, and really try to feed that passion for those students. And we're doing all we can, I think, but if anybody's got any ideas how we can get these kids into observing, interning, job shadowing, anything in the health profession, we've got, it's probably our largest interest area when we do our junior career connection day.
Have you chatted with community college, Grace Harbor Community College, because they have a nursing program?
Yes. Oh yeah, we've been in much contact with them. Mm-hmm.
And what do they say?
Well, Christy, my CTE director, has done most of that, but they're just overwhelmed.
Because running START or some program like that, it's a little bit of a ways from Alma to get to, the community college, but they've got a pretty strong program, I think.
They do. They have a wonderful program. In fact, I think Christy's husband graduated from there, and he is a nurse at St. Pete's right now. But anyway, yeah, we as juniors and seniors, we want to try to get these kids into that. A lot of them think they're interested in the health profession, but it would be nice to really, I always encourage students to get out and job shadow. You'll know within 2 or 3 hours if it's really something you're interested in, or if it's just, this isn't what I thought it was going to, and so we've got a very strong CTE program here at Alma High School, and just really want to really develop that healthcare field if possible. Summit Pacific is a stone's throw away from my office right here, but I don't know if anybody's got an in there, but it's been tough. And then COVID hit, and, yeah. So, but I see these young students as willing, as the foundation to helping out our caregiver issues.
Yeah,
So-
workforce is a big challenge right now. So anybody that's got a pulse, we got to get them into the profession.
Right. We've got the kids, but getting them there is a different story.
So Richard, you had a question?
I do. All right. I live in Westport, and I'm retired military, and I have some unique situations. I have an autistic daughter who's a school age 13-year-old, and we run into several issues in our county. One of them is managed care. One place takes your insurance, the other place doesn't, and you play a juggling act. Two, we had dual insurance for. We had TRICARE. TRICARE has changed their system so severely on ABA therapy that we had to pull her out of the managed care for having TRICARE as the primary. And because they're now saying that ABA therapy is experimental, and it's not, and the managed care recognizes it, but so it handicapped my daughter's therapy to the point where the therapist could not do any therapy. But the problem, what didn't end there? The biggest problem we had was when we disabled the TRICARE, the managed care sees TRICARE as still a primary, because TRICARE, if you keep the child on your gears as your dependent, it puts a gray area, because then they tell you you have services on the base. So the managed care says you still have services. So when you go to get a prescription, we had to get overrides every time until they said, stop, we're not going to give you override because you still have a primary care. So you can't go to the base to get any services because the bases will only service active duty. And you can't go out in the civilian world to get your Medicaid because the managed care is fighting you on that. And we need some type of legislation that clears this up, because it is really bad. If you have a retired person that has TRICARE and has a managed care like Amerigroup, you are going to go through a headache like you've never seen before. And it's like, it's enough to put you in the hospital. So I was like, that's something I really want you to address is our managed care out here is really pissed poor, because you have to go to Summit for one, you have to have Molina for the other, but they don't interchange. We don't have any universal where you can go anywhere out here. And then if you go to ABA therapists, depending on which insurance they take. Yeah, it's like, we don't have anything that it's, you have to really research every single thing you do on anything for medical. If you go for an MRI, you can't go to Grays Harbor if you have Amerigroup. But if you have another managed care, you can't go to Summit. So it's like, and then you have a lot of appointments in Olympia, and they take everybody. So why can't we get something out here that is a more of a universal fit and helps everybody versus trying to fight it?
Well, we've had some trouble between the hospitals and some of the insurance carriers you've mentioned. I'm not sure legislation would fix that, but we do help people in your situation navigate some of these problems. What I'll do is, if you can read in the chat box, I'll put my legislative aide's email there. She's very good at sorting through these kinds of problems and simplifying.
Right.
As you know, your TRICARE is a federal insurance program, and to do any revision to TRICARE or the VA issues we've got to go back to DC. That's a federal issue.
You know what?
But we can help navigate some of the local managed care firms. It's a common problem because the couple of hospitals you mentioned have had some bad relations with certain insurance carriers.
Right. And, you know, I will say, I don't like being on AmeriGroup, but the one insurance that was accepted all the way through all of Grays Harbor lost their ability to work out here in Grays Harbor and Washington State in general. And that was Community Health Plan of Washington State. And AmeriGroup isn't not the easiest. I have 2 grievances against them. And before when we had it, before we switched, when we had them before, I had 4 grievances against them. And plus I had some through the state health side to tell them that, hey, there's something wrong with that insurance. But besides that, I'm not going to hash that out because we're doing this meeting. It's not as easy. I got some of it fixed, but it is a real nightmare when you have dual insurance and you have to fight it because people look at your insurance and then they automatically assume that you have it. And the big thing is not the TRICARE. It was the AmeriGroup not fixing their system and having to fight it. And you shouldn't have to, as a member or as a civilian or anything, you shouldn't have to fight so friggin' hard for a system to be fixed like that. Yeah, it's like they tell you every 30 days, and then 30 days comes up, and then you have to fight them again. And so that's the big issue. And like you said, your aid will help. There's a lot out here, and my daughter was one of the reasons why we have more ABA out here than we had in the past. My daughter, I needed ABA and I had to go through it, and I fought, and the Basics Northwest moved in and we were able to get them to help us on my daughter. And since then, it grew, and there was such a need that now they have a center and they have everything else. So that's the big thing, is getting therapists out here that can help these children. Your WISE team, I'll go on the WISE team is managed through the state of Washington too, and the WISE team for Willapa Behavioral Health now has no therapists that they can use because they're lack of personnel. They're losing personnel left and right, and we can't get the WISE team to do anything for my daughter now either because of that. You need to really address a lot of mental health, a lot of autism related stuff. We're really lacking in. And as a legislator, you should be able to know what's out there and know whether these people really need a need. And I'm not misinformed because my brother is now the news director for Cairo News Radio. So I can get a lot of information anytime I need. And I'm telling you right now, we are really lacking out here in Grays Harbor, especially in mental health. And you need to figure out how we can get mental health out here and help these people, because it's not just the homeless population needs it. It's also the population that needs it like my daughter does.
Yeah, Richard is bringing up an interesting compounding problem. There's the doctor to patient ratio here in Grays Harbor is 1 to 3,000, but only half of them take your insurance. So it's really more like 1 to 6,000. So yeah, and it seems like the providers trade the insurance that they take periodically. So at any given time, the likelihood that your doctor is going to take your insurance is fairly low. I'd also like to thank Dee Dee really quickly and echo one point that she just made, that the state does a really good job of promoting inclusion and promoting community engagement and promoting work. But then when it comes time that those people need housing, there's no place for them to go in those communities that the state has worked so hard to get them engaged in. So it's a real shame when we spend years doing community engagement services or community guide services for individuals, only to find that when their situation changes, they have to move to Yakima to find some place to live, a community that they're completely unfamiliar with and unrelated to and have no significant connection to. So to the extent that we can expand housing throughout the state and particularly to here, we very much would support that. Appreciate that.
You know, I have to say, Jeff, you make a good point. Out here in Westport, it's a minimum of a 2-year waiting list just to go to low-income apartments. And low-income apartments are not really a good fit for a person that has autism that's really gullible. And so what you need is a place where someone can go and a parent can feel safe when their child's there. And it's like when they're trying to live on their own. Yeah, there's nothing out here that has it. We can go to other states, and other states have autism facilities at a whole apartment complex that's related to someone that has autism or someone with some type of disability that is considered, that's mentored and monitored. So people are making sure they're paying their bills and they're doing everything. And we don't have anything like that in the state of Washington. Yes, like we are piss poor in the state of Washington for any of that. My daughter's 13. Probably when she turns about 16, I'm going to have to get on the waiting list so she can be on, go someplace when she's 18 and she can move out on her own, or when she's out of school, or she can stay in our house all the way into her 20s because she's going to be a super senior because of her education. So he does make a really good point. We do not have any housing out here, and the lists are so long. It's like going into ABA therapy. If you want your child to go into ABA therapy, your child's 7, by the time they're 9, maybe you'll get a therapist. But don't hold your breath, because out here we are really lacking. And you know what? The where the money is the I-5 corridor, and where the money is not is in the rural areas like where I live.
Yes, thank you, Richard. So it's about 10 minutes to 2. I know that the Representatives Chapman, Theringer, and Walsh have engagements at 2 o'clock. Is there anybody else that has any additional questions or any comments you'd like to make?
I would just like to speak in support of the North Star bill, the Omnibus Bill that's coming up. I feel like it's got a lot of, it would help solve a lot of the issues that have been brought up here today. Those 13,000 people in our state that are on no paid services caseload, making those services an entitlement, where if you're eligible, then you receive services that would help with a lot of the problems that people are facing. And I would just say, please take a look at that bill and help that pass.
Thank you. Well said. Okay, well, I have nothing else. If nobody else does, you guys may be able to get a 10-minute lunch or maybe a 6-minute lunch here. So thank you so much for your time, Representative Theringer, Chapman, and Walsh. We certainly appreciate everything you're doing, and good luck this session.
Yeah, it's always good to have the dialogue and hear what how folks are dealing with the challenges they're facing. And as you know, our offices are always open, and we'll keep plugging away on this full spectrum of need as much as we can. So don't hesitate to get in touch with us. But appreciate the dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Definitely
your
heard the
time.
piece on housing. We need housing of all sorts, but including housing for these special needs people. My take is we need housing of all kinds. So anything we can do to open up the pipeline of development, new housing, I support.
Fully agree.
Does anybody know, I was just looking up, so it was 5268, right? And you said it passed the Senate, but didn't pass the House. I'm trying to figure out what happened over in the House side. So it passed the Senate 48-0, which tends to, that definitely, so then it went, so it passed out of committee, the House Committee on Housing, Human Services, and Veterans. Then it was referred to appropriations where it died. So I don't know. I think Representative Theringer served on appropriations. I don't know if Representative Walsh, do you know what happened? Did it just no money or so? I mean, 49-0 out of the Senate, that usually passes in the House.
No, I'm on transpo with you, Mike. I don't think we, appropriations is unfortunately where a lot of bills don't get out. That's the money committee where they have to account for budget impacts.
And sorry, Mike, but this is the North Star bill, or what is this bill?
Yeah, it was referred to 5268. It was sponsored bipartisan. It was Senator Kaiser, Braun, and Wynn. So you had, I'm sure you kind of
Yeah, I mean, part of the challenge with last year was that we didn't do companion bills, so which means a bill in both chambers, so people get informed about what's going on. I think we just kind of ran out of time, and there is a North Star work group that has been very effective. We've actually heard from them a couple of times in the Joint Executive Legislative Committee on Aging and Disabilities. Actually, Senator Emily Randall is a real champion for that, and she's been working on that. And so I think you'll see us come back at that this year, because people are really positive of the work that work group, and that's kind of, I think, who you were referring to, Christy, when you were talking about, that's just been a real positive work group on sort of laying out and developing and focusing on these issues. So no guarantees, but I think there's probably a good chance it'll keep, we'll see it get through this session or something.
That would be great news.
To be able to help with that.
I think 5268 was about caseload forecasting, but it's all part and parcel of that North Star recommendation.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry. I thought it would. Anyway, well, I think these are issues that are bipartisan. It just sometimes comes down to a little bit of money, but you guys made a great point today that services are still lacking. There's no lack of demand with the demand on the finances of the state, but certainly these are high priority. And I think my hat's off to Representative Walsh and Theringer, who work tirelessly on especially on affordable housing on these issues. We're trying to work together on behalf of the harbor. The healthcare issue certainly has been brought up. Some of that started, a couple of years ago when our insurance commissioner let some health insurers pull out of the harbor and made the backhanded compliment to the Great Harbor that because folks maybe weren't as good at health, that somehow insurers could pull out. Senator Vandewey and I worked on a bill and have tried to put some pressure on the insurance commissioner's office to really, they don't do that with house insurance. They don't do that with auto insurance, pick and choose where they want to provide services. So, but we're trying to make some progress there. And then your hospitals are doing the very best they can, but they're really understaffed. We've heard, I met with Summit Pacific. We also, Representative Theringer and I know we met with Tom Jensen of the hospital, and they're just, and up north here, our hospital up north here has a couple hundred job openings, literally a couple hundred. So, I think in all these areas, we're just a lack of a workforce really is a challenge. You can, even if you fund it, you can't make people come work someplace. So we can't make people come to our communities, although our hospitals are certainly doing their very best to recruit. And then the education piece, we need to beef that up. Sorry, Mary, that's really, You know, those are the programs that we taught. All three of us, I guarantee at some point said we need job skills training at the high school level. I guarantee you we've all made that part of our, what we believe. Now you have a program at the high school level and you can't find someone to help you teach. That was probably never a part of in our mindset. We always just assumed somebody would come and teach if we had high school kids interested in job skills. So that's a twist on an issue that, you know, that's the first that I've heard. You know, it's always been the other way. Why can't we teach these skills in high schools and community college? And so here you have a great program. It looked like a long list. I couldn't quite tell, but it looked like a pretty good list of kids. So
I have 15, 20 students ready to take a Saturday class to be a nursing.
yeah, and that's really a shame. So that's something that I'll let Jim and Steve figure out that that issue. But I mean, it's a good, well, it's not a good problem to have, but it is more positive than.
Feel free to contact me. I'll be here till probably the end of the year, and then I'm going to retire.
Okay.
I do have a question on this. Some of the things that our harbor is experiencing out here. Do you know what divert is for emergency rooms and care? All right. Right now, I'm in the South Beach Regional Fire Authority as a volunteer, and quite often we're taking patients all the way to Olympia or even to Tacoma for emergency care by ambulance, and that's something that really needs to be addressed too.
Yep, in our meeting, I had a meeting in Ocean Shores, and that was a big issue with them this summer. They had a house burn while the paramedics and firefighters were out of the county on a diversion call. They didn't have enough people to fight the fire, so it was a real touchy issue in Ocean Shores this year, and the hospitals are aware of it. Both Summit and Summit's limited or not, because some cases, so some people, was talking to Josh at Summit last week, some people will walk through the front doors of his facility and he literally can't, he doesn't have the ability to take care of them, so he has to, but the hospitals had to divert some folks to, and that's a couple, and then the hospital they were taking folks to in Thurston County, they've been diverting them up north, so it can be a 3-hour round trip. And one thing, I don't know, Steve, I mean, you guys don't have a private ambulance service down there, which, you know, we're lucky to have one up here in Clallam County. So so it's literally your firefighters and paramedics that go out of the county. We're aware of it. Everybody's aware of that one. Well, thanks.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
All right. Thanks, Jeff.
All right.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye-bye.